So I spent years trying to love myself with mirror affirmations and positive self-talk. And yes, I did stand in front of the mirror and said, I love you 100 times, which was a complete waste of time, to be honest. But what actually transformed my relationship with myself wasn't about self-love at all. It was something much more essential that no one really talks about that much. So in this video, I want to share with you the approach that finally worked when all the trendy self-love advice failed me. And I divided the video into 3 parts. Number 1 is we'll first talk about the problem with self-love, and then we'll explore the root causes of self-rejection and why it's incredibly important to actually like yourself. And in the last part, which is probably the most important one, I'm going to provide you with 4 steps on how I learned to like, accept, and appreciate myself. And it's what I help a lot of my clients with, and it's a real game changer. So let's dive in. Let's first talk about the problem with the idea of self-love. I used to really try hard to love myself, trust me, because, I deeply struggled for a very long time. I was terribly mean to myself. I had this loud, critical inner voice. And when I made a mistake, I would internally tell myself things like, you're so stupid, you always mess things up. And I would just ruminate forever when I thought I did something wrong. And I also accepted really poor treatment from friends, from partners, and people I was dating. And I was always seeking validation from outside, from other people. I just didn't trust myself or my intuition, and I didn't really respect my own needs and my own boundaries. And yeah, above all, I was just really hard on myself, and I put so much pressure and expectations on myself. And well, beyond that, I partied really hard for a long time until my late 20s, and I took drugs and did all the things because I just couldn't actually stand being with myself. Like, it really wasn't good. And so many years ago, at the beginning of my healing journey, I read about the idea of self-love in all these self-help books out there. And I listened to the gurus and I listened to the teachers telling us that we're supposed to love ourselves. So I was like, okay, sure. I'm going to make this my new goal, my destination, and then I'm going to be happy. So I turned it into a measuring stick, and I was trying really hard to get it right, of course. And the more I tried, the less I was actually loving myself. I shamed myself for not loving myself enough and for just not doing it right. And so looking back, I didn't actually love the part that struggled to love myself. I rejected her a lot. And so in trying to love myself, I was actually rejecting and shaming myself. And also, I see this with a lot of people and clients. If you've never experienced love or safety growing up, telling yourself to just love yourself, it can feel like asking yourself to build a house, but with no foundation. You don't even know what you're aiming at. Now, what I find way more important actually than self-love is, do I like myself? Do I accept all parts of me? And can I be compassionate with myself? Do I like spending time with myself? Do I take care of myself? Do I know my needs, and can I stand up for my boundaries? And if the answer is yes to all of them, then maybe the end result is what some people call self-love. But it's the result and it's not the fix. This is really important. However, as a side note, the cool thing is that what we know from science is that liking ourselves and being compassionate with ourselves is related to reduced stress reactivity, lower cortisol levels, higher heart rate variability, better stress resilience, and better emotional regulation. All really essential things for good mental health. So why do so many people, me included back then, why do they struggle to love themselves, to like themselves even, right? Well, here's something that might surprise you. Self-rejection isn't something you were born with. You actually learned it. That mean, critical voice in your head that's constantly putting you down, that's not even your voice. It's usually your parents, your teachers, or society and culture talking. And we end up internalizing these judgments so deeply that we mistake them for our own truth. And so as kids, as children growing up, so many of us had to make this impossible choice between being who we really are and staying connected to the people we needed the most. We figured out really quickly which part of ourselves were acceptable and which parts would get us rejected, criticized, or punished. And when showing certain emotions or needs consistently led to disconnection, we started believing that something was fundamentally wrong with us. And here's what happens. We then turn that judgment inward. We convince ourselves that being hard on ourselves somehow keeps us safe, in control, or connected to others by staying small and not rocking the boat. And so self-rejection actually becomes this really twisted survival strategy. And I know it sounds harsh, but at some point it genuinely helped us feel safer in the world. And the problem is, until we become aware of these patterns running in the background, they make it almost impossible to actually like ourselves. And if you've also wondered why so many of us struggle with self-love, then, well, here we go. It often goes back to what happened to us in childhood. And it's these attachment wounds and this developmental trauma, as we call it, that we're basically still carrying. And when we treat ourselves or our bodies badly, there's usually a really good reason for it. Maybe we weren't treated with love and care growing up. And here's the thing, a lack of self-love isn't just a choice that you're making or some character flaw. It's often a symptom of deeper emotional and neurological damage from trauma and from childhood. And as one expert puts it perfectly, her name is Christine Neff. She's a specialist and an expert in all things self-compassion. She says that self-love is not a fix that's needed. It's the byproduct of the fix that's needed. So what does it actually mean to like yourself? Well, it's feeling at ease in your own skin, like you're safe, you're accepted, and enough. Simply enough, exactly as you are right now. And I want to be clear, this isn't about thinking you're perfect or never making mistakes. It's all about treating yourself with the same warmth and respect that you would naturally give to someone you really care about. And when you mess up, instead of completely abandoning yourself and going into that shame spiral, you stay connected to yourself. You get curious about what happened, and you're kind to yourself as you move through this. Liking yourself also means you start making choices that actually honor your needs, not just what you think will get you approval from other people. And there's this quiet, grounded sense of self-trust that develops where your inner critic isn't calling all the shots anymore. You're kinder to yourself, not just during the good times when everything's going well, because that's easy, but especially during the challenging moments when you're struggling or when you've made a mistake. I love thinking about self-compassion like this. It's like being the patient gardener of your own inner world. You don't rip out the weeds with shame and harsh criticism. Instead, you water what wants to grow and gently prune what needs support. It's also like having a best friend who never leaves, right? That's what self-kindness really is having this loyal friend inside of you who doesn't ghost you when you're anxious, when you mess up, or when you get completely overwhelmed. Instead, they sit with you and they whisper, hey, you're okay. I'm here and I'm going to stay here. That's the kind of relationship with yourself that changes everything. So let me walk you through the 4 steps that actually helped me learn to like myself. The first step was creating awareness. And for me, that looked like writing morning pages every day, just unedited stream of consciousness writing, and also a daily meditation practice and just sitting in silence. This created awareness of my inner voice and how it was actually talking to me as I went about my days. It's literally about realizing what's going on up here. Putting my thoughts on the page and sitting with myself in meditation was super, super eye-opening. Now, step number 2 was calming my mind by regulating my nervous system. Because when your nervous system is dysregulated, when it's stuck in fight, flight, or freeze, your brain is constantly scanning for threat. And in that state, your inner critic tends to get way louder. And I noticed that when my mind was calm, my inner dialogue was naturally kinder. So any kind of regulating breath work, such as coherence breathing or box breathing, is really, really helpful. But anything that helps your nervous system find calm and regulation will also help to be kinder to yourself, be more compassionate with yourself. Now, step number 3 is connecting to your inner critic. As meditation teacher Jack Kornfield says, if your compassion does not include yourself, it is incomplete. Now, I started using things like IFS therapy and inner child meditations to relate to all of my parts in a more compassionate and kind way. This meant reconnecting with the parts of me that were taught that were unlovable. And from there, self-love could actually grow. I learned to think of every emotion, every thought or feeling like a guest arriving at the doorstep of my awareness. And so your job isn't to fight these guests or to evict them. Your job is simply to host them, to let them stay, to learn from them, and allow them to leave when they're ready. And this includes the part of you that resists self-love, the anxious part, the escape-driven part, and the parts that want to run from the present moment. True self-love isn't saying, I love myself. It's opening to the entire guest house of your experience and hosting every emotional visitor without judgment and without needing to fix them. And step number 4 is to actively practice self-compassion. Now, Christy Neff, who I really love, she has this beautiful practice. She says, whenever I notice something about myself I don't like, or whenever something goes wrong in my life, I silently repeat the following phrase. This is a moment of suffering. Suffering is part of life. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion I need. And I wrote this one down on my phone and I read through it regularly, and it really helped me to relate to myself in a new way. And I highly recommend that you try this out. Now, lastly, let me leave you with some self-inquiry questions that can really help you on your journey. Number 1, what are parts of myself I reject and judge? And how can I be more compassionate with them? How can I find out what they actually need? What is one kind statement I feel comfortable saying to myself when I need support? If I spoke to myself like I would to a dear friend in pain, what would I say? What is my inner critic trying to protect me from? Whose voice does this inner critic remind me of? And what are 3 things I genuinely like about myself? Now, these questions aren't meant to be answered quickly. Sit with them, meditate with them, journal with them, and notice what comes up without judgment. So now that you know how to learn to like yourself, this next step is really important because once I understood this, my life completely changed. So head on over to this next video and I will see you over there. Thanks for watching. Peace.